All right, everybody, welcome to Roundtable News. I'm Jeff Glover. Let's get started. The first thing we have here is starting jujitsu on your knees. So, this can throw people off at first when they first come into jujitsu. They're like, oh, I'm going to learn this deadly martial art I've heard so much about. And then they see guys sitting on their knees, shaking hands, and wrestling. To some dudes who have experience in wrestling and other fighting styles, it kind of looks like you're a little bitch. Bitch. They're like, what are you doing on the knees? And you kind of have to explain to them and let them know that, it's an injury prevention thing, that a lot of the worst injuries happen on the way to the ground. So by starting on the knees, you already eliminate a lot of the potential catastrophic injuries that can happen. So, and um, it's also been used for being able to quickly slip to your side and be sitting on your butt and be able to work your guard, because a lot of guys need to work their guard more than anything. Remember, jujitsu primarily, like the thing that separates jujitsu from all the other martial arts is the guard. Is that we use the guard. Is we're like, yeah, I'm purposely going to put my back on the ground and fight from there and become really good at that. So that's often what I run into is people kind of think you're like a little bitch because you want to start on the knees. And you're like, you know what? Now that I think about it, you're right. Well, when people start on the knees, I would like to see one of them become the guard player voluntarily without having to be forced into it. And in fact, in jujitsu class, it should be a race to get to the guard. You guys should be battling over who gets to play guard first. There's, especially nowadays, there's wrestling classes you can take where the focus of being on top is what's going on in the class. So I think if you're going to be starting on the knees, it's just a shortcut to getting to the guard, which is what it's all about. 70% of jiu-jitsu is guard play, is either being on top and trying to pass or being on bottom and trying to sweep submit. You'll see dudes fight from the knees. You'll see dudes from the knees like square up on each other and try to like judo each other over fighting from the knees. And it looks pretty silly. I can see how dudes want to win that battle, And let me encourage you guys that are doing that. If you're starting on the knees, try to have a different mentality. Try to think about quickly getting to your guard so that you can practice the guard techniques that you should be working on, right? A lot of your jiu-jitsu should be having a confident guard, a guard that you're not embarrassed of, and you're sure as heck you're not afraid to show people. You're sure as heck not afraid to get to the guard. You should never be afraid of your guard. You should be proud of your guard. You should be in a rush to get to your guard. You can't wait to get to your guard because you know you're going to sweep, dude. You know you're going to get that triangle, whatever it is. That's how I always saw it. So when I would see guys, two guys shake hands starting on the knees and they get into this like try to knock each other over battle, I kind of feel like it's a waste of time. I feel like if you're going to do that, go do a wrestling class. But that's just me, People might have a different opinion about that. Training with women. Well, this is a very loaded question, I would say. Questions like this are funny. It'll make you like lump everybody into like one group. I think when you're rolling with women, you want to do it individually. They're all so different. I've rolled with some women before that like were smiling, like you have them in a kimura and they're like, yeah. And you're like, whoa, are you all right? You should tap out right now. And they're like, no, it's okay. I'm okay. And they just, and they would get hurt. And even if they got hurt, they wouldn't like blame you or anybody. They would take it, they'd be like, oh yeah, I'm all right. I'm going to go to the doctor. I'll get this fixed. I'll be back tomorrow. There's some that are like that. And then there's others that are like, you touch them and they're like, oh no, don't touch me. So they're also different. So it's hard to answer a question like that. The question here is rolling with women. That's just like the broad topic, and or training with women. And yeah, you have to do it on you can't just be like, okay, this is my procedure that I do with all of them. It's like, that's crazy. They're all so different. You have to be careful. It's a tough balancing act. You have to be careful. You don't want to be too careful. You don't want to be, too aggressive. But I'll be honest with you. Some of my favorite people I've ever done jiu-jitsu with are chicks, women, whatever. The next one is jiu-jitsu culture in America. So, yeah, it's definitely changed. I think there's a little bit of disrespect towards the traditional belting systems, wearing the uniforms, even some of the structures of how classes run, how professors are supposed to behave, and how professors are supposed to be treated, and what we're allowed to expect from them, what they can expect from us. A lot of that has changed with the fact, one of the big reasons is we don't really need to go to them anymore for a source of information regarding jiu-jitsu questions. Okay, it used to be, I'm going to ask the black belt coach that I have. Now it's like, why would I bother him? Why would I bother? Don't bother him. You should have all your questions answered on YouTube for free, or whatever, some kind of subscription that you have, some kind of website you're subscribed to, I don't know, a YouTube channel you follow. I would be doing private classes with a lot of different people nowadays. That's what I would do, because back in the day you couldn't do that. Back in the day you had to stick with your coach, and I think nowadays we've kind of shattered that idea, and it's like, dude, if I want to go do a private class with somebody, I'm going to go do it, That's what I would do nowadays. I would have a subscription. I would follow all these YouTube pages. I would rarely have to ask my coach a question. That's what I'm saying. A lot of this has changed, and it's pretty interesting. Let's see, what did I write down here? Yeah, kind of like a step back from the belting system. Even we're starting to question the belting system. How important is that? It's always happened. There's always been a blue belt. Occasionally, once every few years, we'll get on the scene quick and start tapping black belts, and you'll hear yo, I heard he taps black belts in the gym. People are like, what? Bada ba. Then he becomes a big thing on the tournament. That's always been common, but what it happens so much more now, where guys are getting good so fast and just so efficiently, and having home setups, having mats at their house. I mean, I've always had mats at my house. I've always put mats in my living room. But yeah, for example, if you look into the wrestling community, they don't have a belting system that I know of. I could be wrong about this, but I've always noticed that they don't have a belt system. And there's not a rash guard, or what do they call them? Singlets. They don't have singlets that differentiate ranking. They're all just kind of wearing the same thing, and you can't tell who the best dude is by judging his rash guard or his singlet. You have to wrestle with these dudes and find out oh, that dude kicked my ass way more than that dude did. So I think a lot of the Japanese and Brazilian, old martial arts world with the bowing and the belts and all that stuff is kind of fading away. Not to say that students are completely disrespectful, in jiu-jitsu nowadays, that Americans are just hey, coach, fuck you. I'm not saying it's like that. I'm just saying things have changed a lot. And to be honest with you, I've been so out of having my own jiu-jitsu school for so long, I couldn't really give you the best perspective on this, if I'm being honest. But I don't know. I think things have gotten better. Guys are really good nowadays, and there's some really smart people in jiu-jitsu. And there's always been smart people in jiu-jitsu, but they're just able to really express themselves and have YouTube pages and podcasts and be able to explain themselves a lot easier nowadays. So, it's like Henzo said, don't make jiu-jitsu just for the intellectuals. You know what I'm saying? Because jiu-jitsu is absolutely for the intellectuals. You know what I'm saying? Smart dudes can get good at jujitsu in like 2 years nowadays. And I don't know. I think that's a great thing. But I'll tell you one thing. I like my belt. I like my black belt. I like my stripes. You know what I'm saying? I can't wait to get another stripe on my black belt. The next thing we have written down here, let's see what it is. It is the best jiu-jitsu in the UFC. So I wrote down Khabib, and the reason I wrote down Khabib is the triangle that he did his last match. Now I know whatever, it wasn't on anybody good, but I don't see too many dudes doing triangles. And I thought that was amazing. And I always remember that kind of stuck in my head. I think it was a guy, Gaethje or whatever. I'm not sure. But he mounted the dude, and then in the process, or as the guy was trying to escape, he turned it into a triangle. And I don't know. I thought that was pretty cool. Most of what you see in the UFC is like rear naked chokes and guillotines. You know what I'm saying? So to see a triangle, I think is always pretty cool. I will mention Hani Hiata. I'll never be able to say his last name right. But Hani was one of the toughest dudes I ever had to compete against. And I know he's still fighting in the UFC today. And he's always passing like drug tests. And, you know, he's probably, I'm 41, so he's probably a year younger than I am. He's probably 40. And he's still fighting and taking fights and doing his thing. And I think he has one of the best jiu-jitsu. He won Abu Dhabi. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, he's still doing MMA to this day. And that was a long time ago when he won Abu Dhabi. So, yeah, the idea is what's the question is who's the best jiu-jitsu in the UFC? Yeah, Khabib, Ronnie. You know who else has really good jiu-jitsu is John Jones. The way that he strangled Lyoto to sleep was amazing. That was jiu-jitsu. Yeah, you know, to be honest with you, I'm not the biggest UFC fan. You know, by default I am, because obviously we're around it a lot. There's probably so many people that I'm like personal friends with that I'm not mentioning. You know who has good jiu-jitsu, believe it or not, is Faber. Faber's really good at choking people. If you go back and watch, Faber tapped a lot of dudes. Guillotines and rear naked chokes. Geez, I don't know. Bill Cooper, my buddy Bill Cooper has done MMA, does MMA. He has really good jiu-jitsu. I mean, Rafael Lovato is probably the best example now that I think about it. Rafael Lovato obviously went undefeated, you know, won a title, and then whatever, made his way back. Now he's doing jiu-jitsu super fights again. And I mean, an undefeated record is probably the best example of a jiu-jitsu guy going into MMA, at least that I can think of right now. I mean, BJ Penn was probably the first big American guy that we all got excited about, you know. Prior to BJ Penn, it was always Brazilians. And, you know, and then BJ Penn was just not only just like some American dude, he turned out to be like way better than everyone else. And he was tapping dudes. He was taking dudes' backs. He was throwing hooks in. He was hitting RNCs. I mean, I'm sure. I don't know anything about his record, at least not off the top of my head. But I'm sure he hit triangles. I'm sure he hit some arm bars. I don't know. I mean, he got so bored with how easy jiu-jitsu was that he wanted to start like knocking dudes out. You know, he wanted to he ended up having like better boxing than he did jiu-jitsu, which is the next subject. I don't know if I want to talk about this one. It's oil checks, fools. I don't know that I want to talk about oil checks. What is an oil check? Well, an oil check, it comes from wrestling. It's a grip where they will stick their hand into your butt. And they would use the ridge of your butt cheek, of your buttocks as like a handle. And you can use it to like pull, you know what I'm saying? Pull yourself or pull them closer. And there's like I'm not sure. I think there's like a rule, like a line, like 30 degrees in towards the actual anus. I don't know about any of that. I don't know. But you know what I'm saying? And then it can go too far and dude will be like, whoa. Is it okay? I guess I'm okay with it. Have I done it? You know what I've done? I have stuck my toe into somebody's butt before. when they were trying to leg lock me, and the only way out, like my leg was entangled, but the other one wasn't, and I just wedged my toe up into there, and whatever was in there, and just pushed, and was able to pry my other leg out. So I'm guilty of it. I'm guilty. Have I had it done to me? I don't want to talk about it. I don't know that I've had it happen to me. To be honest with you, I don't know. It probably has, and I just like pushed it to the back of my mind because I'm traumatized from it. Homies. Number 6, Craig Jones. Craig Jones from Australia. He did a class with me. He sent me a picture one time. He was like, yo, do you remember when yeah, crikey, do you remember when I was a pipe about, I came to train with you? And I was like, no. And he sent me the picture. No. And yeah, he came and did a class with me before he was all popular. And he obviously did a class with Dean. That's when I was at Victory MMA. And I think he's great. You know, I think Craig Jones is what pro wrestlers are trying to be. Craig is the real deal. Okay, Craig is like a real pro wrestler. Okay, he's not pretending. Like all those dudes have like gimmicks. You know what I'm saying? They have like script writers. They have, you know, like people like making their outfits for them. Like Craig does all that himself. You know what I'm saying? Craig is a real life pro wrestler. Like he can obviously break dudes off on the mat. His jiu-jitsu is great, right? His jiu-jitsu is funny. Like he does funny things to people. You know what I'm saying? Like he plays with his food. Also, what makes him a pro wrestler is he's really good on the mic. He can cut a promo. That dude is a professional on the mic. He can talk crap. He can take a joke. You know what I'm saying? You can talk crap about him, and he's not going to get all mad. He's just going to hit you back with like a funnier comeback. Or if he can't think of a comeback, he'll laugh at himself, which is great. You know what I'm saying? He's funny. He has personality. He's charismatic. You can't fake any of that stuff. You know what I'm saying? You can't train that stuff. You'll see people try to train being charismatic and stuff like that, and it always comes off, what's the word? Disingenuous. Yeah, I think Craig Jones is. Let's keep Craig Jones in jiu-jitsu forever. I hope he doesn't like go into something else and become smart and wants to become super rich, so he's going to go do something else. I hope he stays in jiu-jitsu and we keep him around because he's one of the best sources of like knowledge and like comic relief in jiu-jitsu. You know what I'm saying? Like I know what his butt looks like. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm like, oh, I can see it. You know, I've seen so many pictures of him with his, you know, you can see it like in a mirror. He's hilarious. Gordon Ryan now is what we're going to talk about. Gordon Ryan is also like a pro wrestler. Gordon Ryan reminds me of Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns has this gimmick about acknowledge me. That's all Gordon Ryan has ever wanted. Gordon Ryan has just wanted to be acknowledged. He's like, guys, I'm winning. I tap all these dudes out. And there would literally be dudes on the internet saying, no, you still suck. And he's like, dog, I tapped all these dudes. Acknowledge that. And they're like, no, we don't want to acknowledge that because we don't like you because you're rude, because you have mean text. You have mean tweets. So, yeah, he reminds me of that pro wrestling character. That might be, I think Gordon Ryan came first. I think Roman Reigns might have based his character around Gordon Ryan. Winning. People still saying, we hate you, you suck, we wish you weren't here. He's like, what are you talking about? I just tapped all these dudes. I've won every match, bada ba. Like the stats speak for themselves. I have the highest submission rate, bada ba. All this stuff. People still hating, talking crap, won't call him the king. He's like, I'm the king. Call me the king, acknowledge me. And no one wants, and not no one, but for a long time, there was hesitation to acknowledge him. And, you know, I don't know that he deserved that. You know, I think his contributions to jiu-jitsu, there's zero denying any of that. Like, is he a dick? Maybe. Does that matter? I don't think so. I think what matters are his stats. And Yeah. I acknowledge Gordon Ryan. I think he's the king. I think Gordon's the man. Is he perfect? No. There's probably so many threads of the B team, and they have their hate, and they could tell me all kinds of examples of why he's a dick, blah, blah, blah. I'm sure. Look, I don't know the guy. That's none of my business. I'm talking about his jujitsu, dog. I think his jujitsu's dope. You know what I'm saying? He's good on the mic. He can talk shit. Overall, I think he's like a pro wrestling character, just like Craig Jones is. They're great for jujitsu. Great characters. Um, the next thing we have here is uh huh. Sure. I mean, for example, the way Gordon Ryan and that whole team, the way they were setting up inside heel hooks from the bottom position. Um, I remember talking to Dean about it. Dean and I were saying how we had never really done that particular setup, and how cool it is, how useful it is, how difficult it is to learn at first, how easy it is to get overwhelmed with that lesson and think like, whoa, that's too much for me to learn. It's not an easy move to learn. It's actually pretty difficult to learn. But once you get it down, it's hard to go back to other moves. And I think that's the number one contribution, jujitsu wise, that I've learned from watching Gordon's matches a long time ago. This is old news at this point to a lot of people. Okay. The other thing is, the way he would control the back. It was very to me, it was the opposite of how Marcelo Garcia was taking the back. Marcelo would a lot of times have the bottom arm going for the choke, and then Gordon Ryan would have it where the top arm was going for the choke, and just stuff like that. Really particular little details, jujitsu things that would be much easier to show you on a mat. Um, Stuff like that. I think his attitude towards confidence in himself and willing to always bet money on himself was pretty cool and refreshing. At any point, he was like, "Dude, I will literally bet every dime that I have against anybody that wants to have a submission match with me." And that was pretty cool. I think that's the spirit of jujitsu. Is let's get to the bottom of who's the best. You know what I'm saying? It's jujitsu was dojo storming. Jujitsu was what up taekwondo, karate schools. What up all these other schools? We're gonna come in there and see who's the best and fight. That was how the Gracies did it. There wasn't really that much respect. Like that's in a way that's not very respectful. So respect, whatever. We're trying to get down to the bottom of who's the best and who has the best style and which style should be taught, which style should be is the safest style to learn. I'm trying to learn the martial art that's going to save my life. I don't want to learn from second place. You know what I'm saying? That's the spirit behind jiu-jitsu. We want to get down to the bottom. Which martial art is the best? And that's the same spirit behind, put your money where the mat is. Put your money where your mouth is. You know what I'm saying? And I love that Gordon Ryan kind of introduced that to the jiu-jitsu community. Okay, next on the list here to talk about is Gorilla Hands Majid Hage. Now, I've got to witness him open the jiu-jitsu school called Surf Fight, and his business partner Joel Tudor. I've watched them from day one. I was there the first day they opened doors and laid down their mats, and it's been really interesting. It's been a great learning experience watching these dudes go through the whole process and watching them have to fill all the shoes, all the positions that you have to fill in as a jiu-jitsu school owner. You hear about this a lot, having to be like a doctor, and your students come tell you about your injuries, and you have to like say something to them. You know what I'm saying? It's always interesting how different jiu-jitsu teachers deal with that. Some jiu-jitsu teachers will straight up tell you, be like, "Dog, don't tell me about your injuries. I'm not a doctor. I'm going to give you advice that's going to make you worse." Some guys will like just bull crap and bullshit and tell you some advice that they have no business telling you. You'll be like a therapist. They want to tell you their schedules. They want to ask you questions. It's a full-time job. It's a 24-hour job. Like, they're answering questions on the internet. You know, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and it's been interesting for me because, one, I'm a very lazy person, and it just seems very challenging to me. There's so much laundry. They're always doing laundry. Geese getting left behind, students getting hurt, you know, neighbors. It's a whole thing running a jujitsu school. Um, but yeah, it's been cool seeing because I've known Majid since he was really young when he was like in the kids divisions, and he grew up into black belt and, you know, made his way to Abu Dhabi ultimately, and had some of the best competition runs in the last, 4 or 5 years now. And it's been he's led a good example for me. Let's put it that way. It's been cool seeing him balance all those things, being the competitor, staying fit enough to be able to be a good enough competitor to compete with, the guys that he has to fight. Um, Watching him balance being the competitor with being the jujitsu school owner, with, being the head coach. You know what I'm saying? And also still trying to have fun and surf and enjoy his life as well. And he's a great dude. He's just like everybody else. We're all the same. We all make mistakes. We all have setbacks. We all have regrets. And he's a really good friend of mine, and we've seen each other go through stuff like that. And I think that's a big part of um, being friends with somebody in jujitsu. We're gonna see each other fail. We're gonna see each other win. You know what I'm saying? And you got to be there through the thick and the thin. And that dude's always got my back, and I'll always have his back. I'll tell you that. Um, the next subject is Nicky Ryan versus JT Torres. Well, Nicky Ryan submitted him, and I suppose I would say, to me, that was a bit of a surprise. I think the injuries that Nicky Ryan has gone through have been very public, and he shared a lot of his story of his journey going through his knee injuries and his knee surgeries. And it's a pretty rare thing for people to have those kind of severe injuries and surgeries like that and be able to come back and do as well as Nick Ryan has done, and to get a submission win over JT. And, if those of you who've heard about this already, you've heard the stats, there've been like 3 guys that have been able to submit JT in the last, whatever, 15 years or something like that. And it's pretty remarkable, and it's a pretty big achievement for Nicky to get that submission. And it's just going to build so much momentum. Something like that builds so much momentum going into big tournaments. And you better believe that Nick Ryan's going to ride that into ADCC. Obviously be one of the favorites now. Because people have beaten JT, but like I said, nobody really submits him. It's very difficult to submit that dude. So it's pretty interesting. Pretty interesting. Congratulations to Nick. That's a big victory. JT's the man. 2-time ADCC champ. Cade Rotolo versus Mikey Musumeci. And it's a different weight class now. So we're having a smaller dude fighting a bigger guy. And the way I see it, I think there's more risk associated with Cade. I think if Mikey loses, it's not really a big deal. Of course, he lost to Cade. Cade's way bigger than him. Cade has just probably they're both childhood jujitsu dudes. They're both dudes that have done jujitsu since they were little boys. You know what I'm saying? Funny how that works, huh? The dudes that have been doing it since they were little kids are like winning everything in the world today as adults. Um, that's normally how it goes. That's normally how that goes. But there are dudes out there that get into jujitsu and within, 5 years are dangerous. And you're like, whoa, you just beat a lot of dudes that have been doing this since they were little kids. That happens. But yeah, these 2 dudes have been doing it since they were little kids. And obviously, I think that Cade is going to get the submission win over him. I think he's going to overpower him. I don't think anything Mikey can do is going to surprise Cade. And if he was going to beat him, it would be by surprise. He's definitely not going to power through him or out cardio him on anything. I think it's a great match, though. I think if Mikey goes the whole match without getting submitted, that's kind of a victory, considering the weight difference. But I don't think there's a lot of risk for Mikey. I think if Mikey loses, it's all good. It won't be a really, it won't be, it won't be like negative, really. You know, it'll be looked at as like, wow, Mikey, you stepped up, and he is stepping up, and that is brave of him, absolutely. Um, but Mikey has potential to look amazing in this, whereas Cade doesn't really have the potential to look amazing. Um, that's what's cool about jujitsu being a smaller guy, though. I used to get the benefits of that a lot because I was always very small, and I would do the open weight class. And whenever a big giant dude would beat me, nobody would ever like give the guy praise. They'd be like, "Oh, poor little Jeff. Like, Jeff's so brave. He stepped up and fought that big mean guy. You big mean guy, go win your stupid tournament now." Um, so it's always gonna look good for the little guy in those situations. Imagine if Mikey submits Cade. You know what I'm saying? Like that would make Mikey look so amazing. He would have two belts, like a belt at a higher weight class. So in a way, there's more risk associated to Cade, and maybe there should be more praise to Cade for that. I don't know. The importance of moving your own body. Well, I'll tell you what, in jiu-jitsu, you can kind of look at it like those two styles. You can move yourself and you can move people. And in my situation, I was always really good at moving myself around people and monkeying, being a monkey and being here and here at the same time. And then, boom, they turn to face me. I jump over here, blah, blah, blah. And I'm all over the place and I'm moving so fast they can't hold me. That's one style. And that's the style I got good at. And there's the other style. There's the style where you don't move and you move people and you grab somebody and you can throw somebody. Um, an example of that is like the guy who will let you pass his guard into side mount so they can grip up onto your back and bridge you up and over. That's a style where they're like moving you. They hardly even move. They do like two little arm movements. They don't even escape hips. They don't even dig their feet into the ground and escape hips left or right. They're literally just rolling. They're just like, wow. You know what I'm saying? And then you go flying, right? And I don't know. I think I wrote down here you should balance both styles out. You should be able to like be strong enough to grab a person and like physically move them, and you should be fast and swift and flexible enough to like juke around people and shoot through somebody's legs, or like, spin fast on an armbar, or chase somebody's back really fast. I think you need to be able to have both those styles. And oftentimes you'll see dudes that are just so unbalanced with that. I was so unbalanced with that myself. So how did I get this BJJ dummy? So I got this BJJ dummy because I signed up for this match at A1 Combat with Uriah Faber, and that's going to be March 25th, coming up here pretty soon in Visalia. And on Uriah's page, he has him rolling with this robot, this robot dummy. And I looked into it, bada bada, asked the questions, followed the Instagram, DM'd the dude, and made the connection. And I mean, it's a really advanced piece of technology here. This thing has a computer on it. If you squeeze it, it gives you an indicator of how much squeeze you're giving it. It'll go from green to red. The joints snap, crackle, and pop and go back into place. It's heavy, but not too heavy. It doesn't like hurt to have it on top of you. It has a wetsuit on top of it, so it's really smooth and comfortable to play with, and it has tension in the arms and tension in the legs, and it's super realistic, and it's absolutely the best grappling dummy I've ever come across. And yeah, the guy Sam who owns the company and who makes these was here in town in Vegas, messaged me, bada bye, said come by the house. He came over. Now I have one of these things. And I mean, this isn't even a commercial. Like he just gave this to me. Like it's probably my favorite way to do jujitsu now. I can do jujitsu without like having to go somewhere or like ask a friend to come over. And also, it's been great for private classes. It's been great having it as a demonstration partner to to show the person I'm doing the private class with what I want them to do without having to have a third person there. And yeah, it's great. I spent like when I first got it, I spent like probably half an hour cycling through all my offensive attacks and setups. Um, I had a great time with it. I was able to get like the amount of drilling that normally would take me like 2 weeks to do. I got that. I got 2 weeks worth of drilling. How about that? I got 2 weeks worth of drilling done in half an hour because of this thing. And like I said, I've worked with other dummies before and done that same amount of time, right? But really, I'm not getting the same amount of benefit out of it because they all had their limitations that this thing doesn't have. And with the way this thing moves and operates, um, I mean, it's pretty realistic, and I feel like I'm getting some really good drilling out of it, and some really good reps on my attack cycles or systems or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, it's called Rollbot. The guy who owns the company is Sam. I don't know his last name because I'm not a good friend to people. Um, but yeah, it's gonna be hopefully. I think every gym, every jujitsu school should have one of these. You know what I'm saying? Every serious jujitsu student should have one of these at their house. You should have a mat set up and a robot at your pad. And the last subject we'll talk about today is talking trash. What do you think about talking trash during jujitsu, rolling, and during jujitsu matches? Well, I'll tell you what. One of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life is Dean Lister rolling with Jocko. Dean Lister talks so much trash to Jocko when they're rolling, it gets uncomfortable. Like I'm like, you know what? I'm not even gonna watch. I don't want Jocko to see me seeing him get punked by Dean. I'm afraid Jocko's gonna be like, hey Glover, were you watching that earlier when Dean was holding me down and screaming in my ear and like asking for the documents? He'd be like, where's the documents, Jocko? Jocko, Jocko, I need the documents. You got the briefcase? Where's the briefcase? And he'd be holding Jocko down in the mount, like holding his hands down. You know what I'm saying? He's like, Jocko, you can't get out, huh? Huh? How much can you squat, Jocko? Oh, all that squatting doesn't mean shit, does it, huh, Jocko? Squat your way out of this, Jocko. Squat out of the mount, Jocko. The squats don't do nothing to get out of the mount, do they? Like this kind of thing would be going on. You know what I'm saying? And I'm watching. And Jocko would look over and see me. And I would be like, oh, I didn't see. I'm watching the kids' class. I was watching the kids' class. And it's funny. You know what I'm saying? Like, forgive me, Jocko, but that was always hilarious watching Dean do that. And I don't know. I think that's part of jujitsu. That's got to be part of it, is like playing around with and picking on your friends a little bit, like holding them down and talking a little shit and making them struggle, making them panic. I think it's all fun and games. Can it go too far? Of course. You know what I'm saying? You'll see dudes actually get into fights because of stuff like that. So, yeah. I never really talked a lot of crap. I always had a lot of respect for the guys that I competed against. I never really had a rival that was a personal rival. Like, I don't like this person, or like we had some kind of interaction online and now I hate this dude and I'm not going to let go when he taps out. Like, that kind of thing never happened with me. And plus, I don't know, I just was never really that good at talking crap. There were some dudes that were just so much better at talking crap than me. And I kind of let them do that. So I tried to always let my jujitsu speak for itself. And I can just talk crap on the internet too. So there's that. That's in the news from the Roundtable with me, Jeff Glover.